So Jesus sends out 70 disciples. This is going to be awful, isn't it? Yeah, okay, I'll stay right here. He sends out 70 disciples and says to them, "You've been following me around all this time. You've been watching what I do. Now I want you to go out and do the same thing. There's just one of me, and there are so many of you." And he gives them instructions on what to do as they're sent out to all of these surrounding towns. Do this, do that, don't carry a purse or a bag, don't pack your luggage. You end up at someone's house, stay there, eat the food that they serve you. It's wisdom, but then it starts to sound a little bit adversarial. Jesus is saying, I'm sending you out like your lambs into wolves. Now that doesn't sound too inviting. And adversarial, I'm wondering what it would be like for those who are in these towns to be thinking that maybe they're considered to be like wolves. And perhaps they can be a danger to the disciples. But nonetheless, Jesus is giving them a warning. Jesus, however, makes it really clear that their going is for a purpose. They're to say something. They're to do something that tends to the well-being of the people in these towns. It tends to their salvation. They're to go and they are to cure the sick. And they're to proclaim the kingdom of God. Cure the sick who are there and say to them, the kingdom of God has come near to you. They've got a purpose. And they go out and they do it. Jesus also explains to them this formula. This is a formula I want to have stick with you this morning. Jesus says, if the people in these towns know you, the disciples, then they're going to know me, Jesus, who sent you. That's how they'll know me. I can't be everywhere. There's only one of me. So if you go and you let them know you, that'll help them to know me. And if they know me, that's going to help them to know God. So if they know the disciples, they know Jesus. If they know Jesus, they know God. And so it is with us. We're like those disciples. We go into a town and we make sure that when people meet us, we show them Christ, so that they get to know who God is and they can hear this good news. It's about the relationships that are formed. So when you get to know somebody new, and this is what I'm up to for the next long while, getting to know many new people, there's three things that you want to know when you strike up that relationship. The first thing you want to know is what's the person's name. And thank you all for wearing your name tags. And please give me many weeks to recall your name. You want to know people's names. So I come into this new town, Strathroy, and what do I know about its name? When I went online to find out things about Strathroy, go on Twitter to find out what's happening, I found some information there, but I soon realized that the town changed its name. I don't know what year it was, but formerly known as Strathroy, now known as Strathvegas, which raises the question, why is this place known as Strathvegas? Apparently, down at the skateboard park, Kenji Marui, I saw him downtown yesterday morning at the downtown market. And he was explaining to me, yep, Strathvegas is even spray painted on the skateboard part. So if it's there, it must be the case. So I got to wondering, why Strathvegas of all? Because I come from Sarnia before here, and there's a casino on Point Edward, there's a casino in Sarnia itself. As far as I've seen, there's no casino here, so that's not out. Maybe it's because, like Las Vegas, Nevada, did you have an earthquake here recently? No. Maybe it's because you sit on this water table in a valley, just like Las Vegas does. Is that why it's called Las Vegas? Somebody suggested to me, no, it's because it's the exact opposite of Las Vegas. None of the exciting stuff happens here as it does in Vegas. I was sitting at lunch, funeral luncheon with a former parishioner in Sarnia, and of course everyone's telling me that they've been to Strathroy before, they love the hospital here, they're related to someone. Their way of reminding me, don't talk about us well, because it'll get back to us. But he explained to me, and this was his definition, it's called Strathroy because in Gaelic, how many of you speak Gaelic? In Gaelic, Strath, you probably know this, Strath means low. It means valley. And then he said, Roy, that means king. So Strathroy probably means the valley of the king. And then I realized that's why it's called Strathvegas, because the king, Elvis, was in Las Vegas, and so that's the connection. But apparently that's not the case. I went to an authority, a book on the etymology of city names in Canada. This one from a long time ago, 1930, by G.H. Armstrong. And he explains that, yes, it's true that Strath being Gaelic for low or valley, but the Roy part is from the Gaelic word for red. And so it means the Red Valley. And you're thinking, what's red about Strathroy? Well, I think back in Scotland where the original Strathroy was, it was a valley of people with red hair in Scotland. And so how do you get from this rad for reddish? Well, here's an example. Rabbit Rad McGregor. Anyone recognize that name? That would be Rob Roy in English. So the red turns into Roy. So you are the Valley of the Red, or Strathvegas. Here's the great thing about Methodist churches, and of course you celebrated your, what was it, 140th?
Yeah.
Sorry, I got it. My apologies. To stay here. The great thing about Methodist churches is they name themselves after the local town or the street or the neighborhood. Not like the Presbyterians who only have two names for their churches, either St. Andrew's or named after John Knox. Not like the Anglicans or the Catholics who choose saints. The great thing about the Methodists is they said, let's go to the neighborhood and we'll align ourselves with where people are at and how they identify themselves. And so your name is Strathroy United Church. This plaque, I'm sure, is somewhere on the building. Anybody know where it is? I haven't seen it yet, but it's out that way. I'll find it. I like that Methodist churches name themselves after their neighborhoods, because it reminds us that we're going, as a church, to where God already is, where God has already made a connection with people. Our job isn't to come in all holier than thou and to say, well, let us tell you about our Knox Calvinist theology, or let us tell us about our favorite saint so you can be holy too. It's, well, let's live and work with you. And in that living and working, we'll come to know each other. And if you get to know us, well, maybe you'll get to know Jesus. And if we get to know you, maybe we'll get to know God also. The second thing that you need to know when you're meeting someone is where they have been. You want to know their name. You want to know where they've been in their lives. Not simply where they come from, but what they've been up to in their lives. And when I came to Strathroy and was meeting before the meet and greet, a few people, the strange things happened. The majority of people that I met worked for tree nurseries. And so I met Barb and I met Tina, and it's like maybe everybody were. And I said, are you working in the same places? No, there's lots of nurseries in the area. And explain to me the reason why. As you well know, the climate is perfect for growing trees. Let me tell you something you already know. And there's a water table there that you can just pump water from and grow trees. Beautiful picture. Tina, did you take that picture? Nice colors in this. So that's a tree farm. And everybody knows, back in elementary school, when you were taught that if you want to know how old a tree is, you can look at its rings, right? And you can tell a lot by a tree by those rings. If there are wide spaces between the rings, what's it mean? You mumbled something, I'm sure. What does it mean, Tina?
A good year.
It's a good year. And if it had thin rings, then it's going to be challenging and dry. So it is with churches. There can be thick rings, those years of growth, where things are expanding and they're strong. And there can be years of small circles where maybe it's a bit dry and things aren't growing and expanding as fast as they used to. So it is with churches. But here's the thing that I want you to remember. When you take a look at the rings of a tree, just because a ring is small from a dry year, it's not standing alone. It's growing on those larger rings. And those rings that are close to the circle, now this is going to ruin the whole metaphor, but they're called dead wood, I believe. But don't misunderstand that. The people who have died and gone before us are part of the strength of this congregation. And the strengths that they established in this congregation, even though we may experience from time to time dry seasons, we still get to lean on that, and it is part of our strength. Get to know the name of the place? It's Strathroy. Where have you been? You've been places that are strong, and we can lean on that going into the future. The third thing that you want to know when you're meeting someone new, the name, where they've been, is where it is that they're going. Where do they feel as though they're going? This is a difficult question for people to answer. It's an awkward question to ask. What do you mean, where am I going? It's a more abstract question. Like, what's your purpose? Where is God calling you to? What's your mission in life? Just like those disciples being sent out, they're being sent somewhere. They don't know where they're going. They can't yet imagine it, but they know that they're supposed to go. My job as pastor is to know not just your name, not just where you've been, what you've experienced in your life, your hardships and your celebrations. But my job is also to talk to you about where it is that you're going, individually and as a congregation. What's our purpose together? How do we respond to God's call? As I mentioned, I was downtown yesterday morning, and I got to meet, I think it was Greg McClinchy, is that the CAO? And was chatting with Greg, and he was telling me about the First Impressions Community Exchange. How many of you, I'm sure there's a couple people here who follow municipal politics in Strathroy. Do you show up and make your presence known every now and again, Jerry? Try to? You have people looking out for you at the door, don't they? Yeah. the town, the municipality, did this exchange with Ingersoll, where Ingersoll sends some people to Strathroy unannounced, and some people from Strathroy go to Ingersoll unannounced, just to make notes about what's your first impression of the town. And then a report is made up. How many of you have read that report about first impressions? There you go, you got some homework to do. I haven't read it yet, but I thought it'd be interesting to read, not just to find out what's the first impression of Strathroy, but how do we think, because Strathroy United Church, we're named after Strathroy. So we're part of that first impression. I'll tell you some of my first impressions. I had to go to the hospital. There's this long process I have to go through to get permission to know who's in hospital so that I can visit. So a little side note, if you know that somebody is in hospital, don't wait around for me to visit. Call the church. Let Patty, the new office administrator, know, because I don't want to miss, because I don't have access to the information yet. Back from that little public service announcement. Went to the hospital to tend to some of this paperwork. It was just after 4, and things were kind of quiet there. And within 1 minute of being in the front lobby, someone in a suit and someone in formal dress stopped to ask me if I needed some help. And I thought, well, that wouldn't happen in Sarnia. And welcomed me. I didn't know it was a doctor or someone working in administration, but very friendly, which jived with what I was told by people in Sarnia. You say, do you know Strathroy? And I said, no, but I've been to the hospital there. Friendly hospital. That's part of the culture. After those two people said goodbye to me, I was standing and looking at the donor wall, looking for names, and I recognized so many of your names there. Found the name of Strathroy United Church listed down the hallway. And while I was standing there, one of the nurses who was heading home said, can you find what you're looking for? And I explained who I was. And she delayed her going home, and she gave me a tour of the hospital. Like, how friendly is that? And of course, you can't do a tour of the hospital without walking by Dorothy Doan's name. Dorothy was on my student committee, whatever we called it back in the day when I was here 29 years ago. And of course, is responsible in many ways for that culture of hospitality. Jesus, when talking to the disciples, what I said, it sounds adversarial. Let me tweak that a bit. Jesus is really concerned with first impressions. Jesus makes sure that the disciples tend to those first impressions, and they pay attention to how they are received. And go so far to say, if you're received well, then let your peace, which is my peace, settle into that place. But if you're not received well, then move on to the next town and kick the dust off your sandals. Seems harsh, seems very harsh, but I think it underscores the importance of don't take for granted the opportunity that we have when we're out and about in your town, where you already are. To remind ourselves that you don't need to learn how to connect with this town because you are this town. And you're already doing the work of Christ to make this place more like the kingdom, the realm of God that we are to proclaim. And so, as we join together, I'm just making a move, and let's see if that move can connect up with the movement that you already are, and that together we can do what Jesus has sent us to do. And not just proclaim the good news, but be the good news in this community. Amen.